Go ahead.
I'll call the December 19th Wright County Board meeting. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. I'm not Charlie. I'm much younger than Charlie. Charlie had surgery yesterday and everything went fine. He says it will be a couple weeks before he'll be able to do his marathons again. So, County Board minutes from December 12th.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from December 12th.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Hewsom. Is there any discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. The agenda. Does anybody have anything to add to the agenda today?
I have a couple of timed items at 9:30, and I'm wondering if, as number 3 under there, we could add update on driver's license lookup cases. These are the civil cases that MCIT's been representing us in. It's just an informational item, probably two to 3 minutes. So,
can you also give us an update on what's going on at the
Office of State Auditor lawsuit? Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what's going on with that. Sure. Just kind of give us an update.
Mr. Chair, with those additions, I'll make a motion to approve today's agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Hewsom. Is there any discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Consent agenda. Anybody have anything with concerns or anything?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Vetch. Is there any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. 9:02, our illustrious bow tie attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm here actually to talk about one of our retired assistant county attorneys, Terry Frazier, and I just wanted to advise the board that on December 7th, earlier this month, the Minnesota County Attorneys Association recognized retired assistant county attorney Terry Frazier with their Award of Excellence. And the Award of Excellence is presented to a county attorney who has engaged in activities that show a high level of dedication, professionalism, and commitment to public service and the public practice of law. Recipients may also distinguish themselves by making significant contributions that advance the development of sound public policy, aid in the operation of government, or by demonstrating extraordinary leadership, initiative, or innovation in the performance of their duties. Judging for this award was based on a high level of dedication, professionalism, and commitment to public service, and significant contributions that advance the development of public policy, aid in governmental operations, extraordinary leadership, initiative, and innovation. So the Wright County Attorney's Office nominated Mr. Frazier for this award, and we are absolutely ecstatic to hear that he received it. It was a wonderful ceremony on the 7th for him, and I think more important with this award is to see who the prior recipients of it are. I think this is a very well-received award for Terry, but the prior recipients of this include Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman, Ramsey County Attorney John Choi, Mark Ostrom, I believe is Olmsted County Attorney, and prior Wright County Attorney Bill McPhail, and I believe current Assistant Stearns County Attorney. And also, if you look at the prior recipients, we have former Hennepin County Attorney and current U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar on the list. So I think for Terry Frazier to be added to this list of recipients, I think is a high honor for him and well-deserved. And I told him that we were going to be on the agenda today, but after 28 years of commuting out here from Minneapolis, he declined the invite in the middle of December. So I hope he...
Wasn't enough?
I told him it's live on YouTube, so I hope he's watching and drinking coffee at his home. So.
Congratulations, Terry.
Yeah, congratulations.
absolutely.
He seems like he's a very humble man, so he wouldn't probably, you know,
Was there a certain amount of cases that, I mean, what type of cases did he normally deal with, or did all over the place?
Terry mainly did child support and civil commitments. He was involved extensively with committees with the Minnesota Counties Attorneys Association and gave back quite a bit to the association, to the profession. So to recognize him after his 28 years of achievement, I think was a well-deserved and award for him.
and I think also, Mr. Chair, the type of work that he did with the screening sexual psychopathic personalities and sexually dangerous, that would be a very, very challenging role that he took on too, so. And then all the other commitments, so, yeah. Wonderful, wonderful career he had.
Oh, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what we could do to get Mr. Frazier back out here. I mean, one more time, just so he can get in front of the camera here. I mean,
Brian, you got any ideas?
Terry does like food. He was here last Wednesday because our office had our holiday potluck.
Oh, okay.
Well, then
And
you
so-
gued goofed it up. You should have had it today.
Yeah.
well, today's a potluck too, so proposal of a Terry Frazier Day in Wright County? No. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair.
No problem. Mr. Award-winning Hevala. As we're talking about award winners.
Morning, Board.
Morning.
The first item on my agenda is a housekeeping item where we're adopting a resolution for the election cycle. We do serve as an absentee ballot board, and by action, you do need to adopt a resolution establishing Wright County as a absentee ballot board and our location. We do all the UOCAVA, the overseas absentee ballot boards. So I'm asking you to adopt this resolution establishing the absentee ballot board for Wright County.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution establishing absentee ballot board.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Houston. Is there any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Resolution, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, resolution.
Well then, aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
All right, Commissioners, I'm going to have Greg Kreider come up and address the second item. This is on the County Ditch 38 findings and order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Here in your capacity as a drainage authority for Wright County Ditch 38, we're proceeding pursuant to Minnesota Statute 103E.101 Subdivision 4A for the reestablishment of records. The public hearing in this matter has been closed to further oral and written submissions. I would note that late yesterday, counsel for the Soneses directly emailed all the board members, and I directed you to please disregard that email, and I just want to confirm with you that you did not review those emails because that would be a late submittal after the public hearing is closed, and that submittal is not part of the record in this proceeding as the public hearing in this matter was closed. The Soneses were advised of that, and instead of following our normal rules and procedures, opted instead to directly email the commissioners and bypass the county auditor's office on that submittal. So I would like to confirm with you that you did delete it and that you didn't review any of those submittals.
And if we did?
I would prefer that you rely on them as part of this finding here today.
I did not review them.
Neither did I.
All right,
I did.
Well, Mr. Chair, I would hope that you don't use any of their comments as part of the deliberation today then. Otherwise, Mr. Chair, since the public hearing in this matter has been closed to further oral and written comments, staff has drafted a resolution at the direction of the county board, and we have revised the report to indicate the termination point at Station 6+75, pursuant to the board's discussion of the compromise we reached with the Soneses. Commissioner Burrell had reviewed the resolution and requested an addition to it and an amendment, specifically to paragraph 16, subpart A in the comments. Asked that we add a sentence that states the evidence in the record shows Sones' property is benefited by CD 38. We did make that addition. I have distributed that the amended resolution to the board for your review at the request of Commissioner Burrell. So the matter is before you. I believe we're ready for action.
Okay, so this must be so copies 2 and 3 were the ones that correct, not the packet copy.
Yes, the copy you received this morning is the correct one, not the packet copy. Commissioner Burrell requested that addition.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution for Wright County Ditch 38, findings and order correcting drainage system records for Wright County Ditch 38.
Will the commissioner allow comment?
Mr. Chair, the public hearing in this matter is closed.
I will second that motion.
Well, we have a motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Hewson.
The resolution, correct?
Is there any other discussions? I do have one, is that I thought we had a total agreement with everything.
I thought we
Yeah,
did too until
thought
I
we
got a
did
threat
too.
of litigation yesterday. So I'm not sure why that came. I thought we had a well resolution here, but apparently,
A threat of litigation, you're saying?
yes.
There was no threat of litigation, and I think I should have an opportunity to respond to the comments that were being submitted to the board.
Mr. Chair, public hearing has been closed.
I'm asking a comment on the resolution.
Since this concerns a ditch, and I don't like the county having to deal with things in court, I'll allow her an opportunity to talk.
Mr. Chair, if we do that, we have to table this proceeding and notify all benefited property owners on the ditch and republish for a period of 3 weeks.
I don't believe that's true. I'm only asking to comment on the resolution. I'm not asking to open.
Mr. Chair, it would be a due process violation to all the other property owners not to be able to reply. I'd ask that the board act on the motion before
Mr.
it.
Chair, with all due respect, I'm going to follow the advice of the attorney on this one because this is a slippery slope and I don't want to get on it.
Mr. Chair, I believe that, you know, we've had a number of meetings on this. It's been vetted for several years now, it seems, but I think that I believe we have to follow the advice of our attorney. Because he's right, aren't other people here that can't speak?
So you're silencing the public statements who are directly affected by your resolution. Is that right?
Mr. Chair, we had 2 public hearings on this matter. I'd ask that we...
Engineering submitted to a record.
Mr. Chair, this is an inappropriate comment from Ms. Weens. I'd ask that you close the
Mr. Chair, I
comment.
call the question.
It is a
Resolution.
resolution. Commissioner Vetch?
Aye.
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 No? Motion carries
Thank you.
3-1.
Commissioners, our third item is basically the minutes from our JD 15 redetermination meeting that we held. We held that public hearing here at the courthouse. In your packet should be those minutes. You are acting as the joint board here for Meeker, McLeod, and Wright. They advocated, the minutes were distributed to them. We did get affirmation from Meeker, McLeod, that they agreed with the minutes. We assume, not hearing back from McLeod, that consent was given. But they advocated to this board to act as the official approver of those JD 15 public hearing minutes.
Looking for a motion for the minutes from the public hearing for the JD 15. I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Potter. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Board, as always, new tobacco licenses are referred to the board. Renewals are on the consent agenda. This is a new tobacco license for Quick Trip, Clearwater. Appropriate fees and approvals have been obtained, so I'm asking you to approve the tobacco license for Quick Trip in the city of Clearwater.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the tobacco license for Quick Trip in Clearwater.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Potter. Is there any discussions? Question? This is a brand new building up there?
It is.
Is.
Board, yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Board, the last item on the agenda is to approve the November revenue expenditure guidelines. I will let you know that what we have out in OpenGov is updated through November. We did have you approve budget amendments for 2017. Those are not reflected in there. We'll get them posted here real quick.
Okay.
I invite you to look at the dashboard. If you looked at the dashboard, proportionate by budget, it seems like we're way above revenues and we're above on expenses. But again, once you pull in the December budget, we're right on budget. We do have a very good budget going on. So.
Is the dashboard updating automatically yet?
No, not yet. Commissioners, if Commissioner DeLine, you brought that up. There's a new version of IFS, which is our accounting program. Now, once that gets approved, and we're going to version 2 of it, that's where IT wants to focus that interface, is that we're going to interface with the version 2, not the version 1, and then have to do it over again. So we're a hop skip from integration.
So when is version 2 supposed to be installed and stuff?
I think it is installed.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, I think we signed off on it, so I'd have to verify that with Adam where we're at. But I did get that update from him that, you know, that's a high priority, that they will work on getting that interface. So, right now, we can manually update OpenGov.
Do you have any motion to approve
Mr.
November?
Chair, I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Houston. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Got a copy of this 92%. I was hoping not to get copies every month of this stuff. Once a quarter is plenty enough.
Okay.
Asked this before, I'm asking again, why waste the paper times 5 people? Quarterly, half year, if it's on OpenGov also. If we need to make a paper copy for Ken, we'll just make one for the bullpen back there and that's it, because it just seems like a waste of energy and paper.
Right.
To do this.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Potter, I appreciate that comment, and I really do hope that we won't be printing that report again for you, that you're going to rely on your dashboard. You're going to rely on what's in OpenGov.
I still like a printed copy in a half year for sure, but quarterly,
Right.
just because I can make markings on it and different things. It's hard to do that on a computer. You know, that,
Number 2 lead pencil.
yeah.
Commissioners, if I could just,
Maybe I could borrow one from Tom Kelly, a number 2 lead pencil.
Commissioners, would you like just one quarterly budget report?
And just put it in the back?
Back.
Put it back. That'd
One
be
copy
fine.
for all of
I
you?
could do that.
Yep.
I can,
Yeah.
Yeah, just put it on
Of
the
course,
table.
for the budget process, we'll give you each a hard
absolutely.
copy.
Right.
So,
that was my concern, Mr. Chair.
okay.
Thank you.
I do hope, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Potter, I do really hope that we're going to develop the dashboards in OpenGov that are going to draw your attention to exactly what you want to see. You want to see everything, but to draw your attention to what you want to see. And that's where you're going to go to for your reviews.
That leads to another question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Does that OpenGov dashboard, does that point out anything that's out of the range of normal? If one particular department, one particular line item is way out of whack, or does that not have a feature like that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Potter, I can tell you right now that they're developing an alert module.
Okay.
Not a new module that we're going to buy, but an alert that we're going to have certain targets, parameters that if we're exceeding or going below a certain line item, that proper people are alerted to that.
Okay, but this
your alerts might be different than the department heads.
Okay.
But our first go-through, I can tell you, when I'm looking at the dashboard and I see revenues above budget and I see expenditures above budget, it was drawing my attention. Okay. But again, that learning curve that says, hey, once I show you 12 months of the budget, we're right on.
Thank you.
I do have one question regarding the vouchers and stuff that we approve under consent agenda.
Yep.
I've been noticing that they're alphabetical. With the OpenGov, that'll be all updated on there, so it'll be easy to read, but we'll be able to choose between departments and look at it. I mean, we'll be able to search or have it set up different ways, because alphabetical is kind of hard to figure out what's going on.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the warrant register that you see is the way the checks will be printed, so that's alphabetical. I can assure you that as we pursue an ERP, that is kind of on our docket to bring in a new system. The whole AP Kaizen event that we had to give different levels of input as we're processing accounts payable, that's where you're going to see more of that filtering that you're talking about, where you can see before it gets paid, you know, it hit a threshold that triggered your intent. I don't know, short of that, we can give you a warrant register by department, but the one that's officially in the packet would be that which is supporting the payment, which is alphabetical.
Okay. I was just curious. I just remember the last ones in the past when we had it in paper, it was always based by departments. So
correct.
That's why I was just.
And that's a good observation, because I gave you a chance to look at them, but now you're seeing the.
Yeah.
When you were done with that, we printed one alphabetically for our records.
All right. Do we have a motion?
Yes, you do.
Yep.
Okay, motion second.
No more discussions, anybody? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Alicia O'Hare, Water Resource Specialist from the SWCD.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Potter.
clarification for Alicia or Alyssa?
Alicia.
Alicia.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Both ways, so I want to make sure I'm hearing it from you which way, because people call me a lot of things, and some things are okay and some things aren't.
Good morning, Board, Mr. Chair. So I just wanted to give you a summary of what happened at the regional inspection pilot. There will be a final report that we'll submit to the DNR, our board, and I can absolutely provide a copy to the county board so that it's in the public eye as much as possible. And we'll hope to have that done by the end of the year and submit it to the DNR in early January. So, but I just wanted to give you a summary of what we saw so that you could see what happened with that ordinance. First of all, I just want to acknowledge our partners in this, particularly the Wright County Board and the Sheriff's Office for their participation. So thank you to all who worked on this program. This is just a summary of what happened in our normal at-the-ramp monitoring for the last 3 years. So you can see that both statewide and in Wright County, our numbers are rising. We did do at-the-ramp inspections in 2015 in Wright County. We just didn't use the DNR survey, which is the source of this data. So I apologize that we don't have county-specific numbers for 2015. So we compared all of the inspections to entering only inspections as opposed to when the boat is coming off of the lake. That would be considered an exit survey. Our ordinance that we pass refers to entering boats, and that is gets a little confusing because once a boat is when you're at an alternate location with the regional inspection pilot, you kind of do that entering and exit inspection at the same time. So they could come off of one of these legs, get inspected, and then re-enter. So it gets a little bit funny compared to what happened in the past, because they could, in the past, when you do at the ramp, they could be inspected when they left, and if there's another inspector there when they launch again, they could be inspected. But looking at the drain plug violation rates, this is again entering only, it is going down. So you see statewide in 2015 it was about 4.4%, and in 2017 it was 1.7%. So that's good. That shows that inspections do something, and we're hoping that the education and the repeated contact with the boaters really helps with that. Statewide transportation, this is when they have plants stuck to their trailer or a zebra mussel on their trailer. That's staying fairly steady, but at about 2%. The numbers between 2016 and 2017, I mean, it's a little bit higher, but without more years, it's hard to tell whether that's significantly different or not. But just to note that in Wright County, we had over 17,000 inspections at the ramp, and that was paid for through the AIS fund, and lake associations also paid for inspections. Continuing on to the regional inspection site, just to keep in mind, we were only open for 20 days in October, so this isn't peak season, this isn't representative of a whole season, this is just what happened. It's also a new program, so it takes a while for people to get used to the idea. So total results, we had 254 hours of operation and 319 inspections with 8 decontaminations. Almost 2/3 of the seals were returned, or 2/3 of the seals returned. The ones that weren't returned, they could either be waiting for the next season. People inspected their boats when they came off of the water and their boat is now stored, or they could have, I'm not going to go to Sylvia, John, or Pleasant, I'm going to go to Sugar or Minnetonka, and the seal was broken and simply not returned. The average life of a seal, so this is the time from when we put it on the boat to when it was removed and found at the launch, was less than a day. That seems fine, because some people this is going to be a couple hours that they're going to go. The longest I saw was about 12 days between when the boat was inspected to when we found the seal at the access. There were 66 observed violations. This is both by our roving inspectors and by private citizens. There were 23 calls to law enforcement. We didn't want to overburden law enforcement with this short pilot, so we did not make calls every time. One call was a duplicate. Both our rover and a private citizen called in. The average length of time that a deputy was devoted to one of these calls was 45 minutes. And I counted over 18 hours of deputy time, which based on their contract rate was just over $1,200 for 20 days in October. We did not write any citations on purpose. It was a short rollout pilot. We wanted to mostly be educational, let people know that this was coming, so we did not pursue any citations. This is a graph of the results of the law enforcement. So this corner, let's see if I can get the mouse here. Apparently not. Nope. I'm sorry. The top left corner is when the vehicle wasn't found. That was 9 times. We're talking about 35 total vehicles within those 23 calls. In 3 cases, they left a notice on the windshield of the vehicle, and then the owner contacted the deputy later, and they were able to chat a little bit about what was going on. In addition, they had personal contact with the owner 5 times. And I should say the person that was out there doing the boat, that we do have to differentiate between the person that's actually driving the tow vehicle on the boat compared to the owner of the tow vehicle. Twice, the sheriff was able to be there before the equipment was put into the water. In both times, this was an empty trailer, which was the majority of our traffic. And the sheriff was able to inform the user that they needed to go be inspected beforehand, so the equipment was sent off to the station first. That also happened with our rovers a few times where they saw somebody there and they were like, hey, you got to go do this first, you know, so I don't think they had anybody non-compliant in that case, so they sent a few people off to the inspection station. And in the majority of the cases, almost half, they just left a notice on the windshield saying, you're at a regional inspection site, this lake you need to be inspected at this location first. And we tried to provide brochures that had maps of the location and different information for the boaters to use, and that's something we plan to continue to do in 2018 to let people know what's happening, so just in case they're missed, that we wouldn't, that they would still get information, even if they aren't followed up with law enforcement. So just looking forward, we will be applying to the DNR to do this in the 2018 season. We are not yet approved for that. We do plan to go a little more electronic, so not as much pen and paper. We're working with the DNR to have more electronic information. We will be continuing with the same 3 lakes to start in 2018. Part of this is to explore staffing efficiency, so that how many inspectors do we need in order to keep traffic flowing? When do we need less staff? When do we need more? We are going to explore special needs of lake service providers. Again, we expect that they were the majority of our traffic in 2017, as they were taking boats out of the water quite often. And when you do that 10 times a day and you have to go get inspected each time, it can be a hassle. So we are exploring any special needs that they might have. So with that, I would take any questions.
First one, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you provide us with a copy of these, either this report or the PowerPoint or the notes to it, just so I keep it on record, because I've got a lot of phone calls regarding this, and it's going to really bring its head up again, I know, come April when the ice is gone. So I want to be able to have as much information from what we observed so far.
Yeah, absolutely. This PowerPoint will go into the board meeting packet, and I will submit a copy to the board once we have the official report. And if you'd like, I can come back before the board as well at that time.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alyssa, I really like the fact that you didn't do a heavy-handed way of enforcement, more of educational, which that's what I believe the board was looking for, is not just another way to hand out tickets, but just educate people on what's going on. Because I've heard a couple people say, oh, you're just trying to keep me off the lake. That's not our intent. Our intent is to try to keep something from spreading that's just nasty, bad. I would ask that if you could make sure a copy of this goes to Senator Bill Ingebrigtsen.
Okay.
Because not only he's the chair of environmental resources at the Capitol there, he was instrumental on informing me what they're trying to do this, and he will disseminate and keep that to other counties that have been asking questions. I own a resort in Douglas County, and I know they're interested in this. So if it gets to Senator Ingebrigtsen, it'll be spread out to the people that are inquiring.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Okay, good.
Do we feel that you got enough training for the staff and enough of a system in place to begin a busy spring? It kind of ramps up to summer? Do the staff do they feel comfortable? Or are they hoping for a soft start in April so they can still iron out some kinks?
Right, so I think we got a lot of the kinks worked out, and that, little things like, it's cold in the morning in October, so pliers are useful for helping to get those zip ties on the boats. Little things like that really help and can save a lot of time when it gets busy and people want to get out on fishing opener. So a lot of little things like that were definitely worked out. Our inspectors are temporary staff, so that we may have new staff come in, and we learned a lot about working with them. But we also have veterans that return and come back each year, so they'll be more familiar with this.
What was the time what was the average time for those 20 days from pulling in to pulling out with
Sure.
seal?
So we have two ways that to clock the time. This year we had our inspectors write down times, and they wrote an in time and an out time. We were hoping that they would write down 3 different times, and that was when they pulled up, when they started the inspection, and when they left. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. So we are assuming that they meant that the time that they came in and the time that they left. That was an average of 3.3 minutes. And then the other method of time calculation we had was the DNR survey itself, which is when the inspector hits start on the survey until they hit finish on the survey. One of the flaws in that is sometimes they'll hit start too early, like before there's a boat there, because it's less buttons they have to push when the boat pulls up, so they're trying to save time. So we get longer inspections artificially. So having said that, their survey measurement was 5.5 minutes, and that's just for the survey time. So somewhere in that 3 to 5 minute range is about what we're expecting. So acknowledging the flaws in both data points, because an inspector may miss somebody when they first pull up, but
Alicia, would you let them know what questions were asked on that DNR survey?
I can summarize a little bit. So the DNR survey asks where they are. So we asked them where they were going for this particular site, because we're not at the ramp. They check the drain plug. They check how often when the last time they spoke with an inspector was, and if it's been a while, they give them a little bit more information about aquatic invasive species. They check the boat both visually and tactily. They can touch anything that's visible in the boat, both the trailer and anything inside. If it's a boat lift or a dock, then they would ask them how long it's been out of the water. They want it to be 21 days. All other equipment, they do ask how long has it been out of the water, but they look for a shorter period of only 5 days for those. Entering and exiting differences. So that's the same survey that they ask at the ramp that we used this year. In 2018, it'll be slightly different. And I apologize if I'm missing questions on there.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alyssa, in that brochure that flyer you put out, does it have a reference in there, probably in bold print, hopefully, telling people we're not trying to impair your use and enjoyment of the lake, we're just trying to maintain this for future? Mm-hmm. And is there any reference to them to go look at Lake Coronas? Because people that have barked at me about doing this, mm-hmm. I've had them go look at Lake Coronas and come back and talk to me, and all of them came back, oh my God, I don't want that on my lake.
Right.
You know, because that's not good. Is there any reference point to that to help people? Because some people somebody told them something and that's what they believe, and that's not necessarily the truth. But if they have say, we're doing this for your continued enjoyment of the lake, mm-hmm. you know, and some reference, so they got some point to see what this, you know, starry stonewort is.
All they got to do is look online.
But sometimes you got to remind people that.
Yeah, I don't recall exactly what's in that particular brochure right now. I do know there's pictures of zebra mussels in there. I think we have pictures of starry stonewort on there, and I'm not sure. I don't think we referenced Lake Corona specifically, but we do have some visuals on that brochure.
Is it possible to get us a brochure here so we can actually see it?
Yes, yes.
I think that'd be good for us, because I think that any feedback we can get to enhance that brochure to put it through that this is an educational piece and not, Sheriff Haggerty and his people have better things on their schedule than to sit there and get somebody for that. So we're trying to get people educated on why we're doing this. Mm-hmm. You know.
Mr. Chair, one last question. For those 8 boats that were decontaminated, what was the time frame on those boats?
The time frame, the average time on those was 17.7 minutes. Okay. And again, you do run into some of those of, did they start and stop the timing on that, because that was clocked by the decontamination survey. But we expect that that's an appropriate amount of time.
And that's pretty much from when they pulled in to when they pulled out for the whole decontamination. It was, or is that the plus the 3 to 5 minutes? So they're about 20-25 minutes if you had a decontamination.
Yes.
Okay, so it's about a total
A
plus.
lot of it's going to depend on how long or how
Right.
bad the contamination
Yeah,
is
that's
too.
But I just want to have an idea of what we're looking at for a time frame to
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the longest one was 45 minutes, but that could be that they didn't hit finish right away because they forgot, or we had some pontoons come in that people were trying to get the zebra mussels cleaned off of their boats because they were in infested waters, and it can take that much time, and we're working towards, I just want to make sure this is on the public record because it is a law. When people come off of zebra mussel infested waters like Clearwater, John, and Sylvia, it is even illegal for them to transport their boat to the decontamination station to get decontaminated without a voucher. And normally a inspector at the ramp would be able to provide that. So we're working with the DNR to find a way to provide vouchers for people so that they can be like, okay, I just want to get the zebra mussels off of my boat because it's the end of the season, and of course they're on my boat. So we're working towards getting that done in 2018.
Now,
also.
just so the public knows, because I've had people ask this, that when you're pressure washing these off, they're all concerned that these zebra mussels are going to make it into our stormwater systems and they're going to just spread through our stormwater systems. That is being mitigated, correct?
Correct. So first of all, the high pressure and hot water are intended to kill the zebra mussels on contact. And also we have recovery pads on the underneath the decontamination unit that collects all those zebra mussels so they don't go into our stormwater and keeps them away. And then we just sweep them up and dispose of them properly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Commissioner.
I do have one other.
Oh, sure, of course.
Next year, are we intending on trying to be more educational and not really providing tickets and that sort of stuff? We're just going to try and do education next year with, not real heavy-handed enforcement?
Yeah, we are looking at primarily educational, but we would notice if we have repeat offenders. I believe that if, so if we see the same license plate multiple times, we may ask that law enforcement use their judgment to maybe follow up with that particular person.
I suppose on a repeat offender, you can only,
Only
you can only educate them so much. They need to have the heavy-handed education.
Correct.
The other option, I was thinking that if, in situations like that, that maybe you can get the sheriff himself to write a ticket.
Well, maybe we need to create a diversion program. They can sit in the classroom for 1 hour and they can skip the fine, right?
He's ignoring us anyway, the sheriff is, so.
Yeah. Well,
That's what we were talking about him, so that's fine. You can talk to him, we'll talk about him.
certainly a diversion program, if they were observing, in the films and things, what's going on in some of these lakes that are infested, that would scare them straight.
Yeah. Regarding Cronus, there are 3 entrances to that lake, and there's one that is the worst. The other 2,
Not so much.
you really can't tell that there's an issue on that other side of the lake. So if they go on those other ones, they're not going to see it. But I believe the one that's really contaminated is on 55.
Right.
Correct, yeah, it's just inside Meeker County, and then you get out of the bay there, and then you're in Stearns County, so, but that particular access is in Meeker.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Bryan.
Hey, thank you for turning the lights back up.
Well, I know you wanted to wake up.
One other comment that happened to come to my mind about Terry Frazier, recently retired attorney from our office, is that I supervised him for somewhere between 20 and 25 years. And supervise is really a misnomer. It's about a month before, I think it was about a month before he retired, he sent an email to Tom Kelly and myself thanking us for getting out of his way and letting him do his job. And it was nice to receive that.
Mr. Chair.
First item I have on today is.
Did you have a comment?
Yes,
Mr. Hunt?
that is the
Commissioner
proper
Putt?
way to supervise somebody. Give them the tools to get the job done and get out of their way, let them do their job.
Thank you. The first item I have on today is a follow-up to, I believe it was the last meeting in November when we had some private attorneys from 2 different firms come out and make a presentation to the county board about possible civil litigation against opioid manufacturers and distributors. I'm sure you've seen news items about other counties who have signed on to take part in such litigation. I will tell you that Tom Kelly and I were first contacted in either October or late September. And as we've gone through the process, I think Tom and I both started with a certain amount of skepticism, a lot of questions, and the more we have heard, the more we believe that this is a worthwhile effort, especially with some of the stated goals of the litigation as trying to make things better going forward. It's not necessarily all about recovering dollars, but trying to make for a better distribution system going forward and trying to minimize the problem that is out there. You should have in your packet a couple page, I believe, retainer letter from the firms. Tom, I don't know if you have anything else to add. And otherwise, we're just here to answer questions that you may have.
Right, I'll just be really brief. I mean, when this all started popping back in September, you know, we did a lot of research, watched a lot of things. I sent you all a link with regard to life in general when the Minnesota County Attorneys Association made their release with regard to what they were pursuing by way of this litigation. And it was a pretty good summary with regard to what's taken place. Brian just mentioned it made 60 Minutes the other night. Sunday night, and it's there. And I'm not really sure what the downside is. When I take a look at it, it's kind of like a win-win because number one, if we're not successful, but yet we can find how is Wright County being impacted because of the specific damages that relate back to Wright County, that probably is not a bad thing to have with regard to our brain power. And two, if we are successful, maybe we can utilize that money with regard to prevention, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not sure where it's all going to shake out, but I know the train's leaving the station, and we got to decide whether or not we're going to take that ride. And I can just tell you that in the last 6 months, right here in Wright County, a 17-year-old young lady and another individual, we've had our first confirmed from the medical examiner's office, carfentanil. 2 milligrams can put a 2,000 African elephant on its ass. That stuff is some pretty bad stuff. And I'm just telling you that we might be just at the tip of the iceberg. And I had to bring it to your attention because I didn't want 6 months later some commissioners say, why didn't Tom Kelly ever tell us about this possibility? And that's what we did. It's now up to you with regard to whether or not you wish to pursue. There is a cost to the county. Not in monetary terms, but with regard to helping collect the data that would be necessary to move the county's portion forward. So with that said, I really don't have anything else to say, and I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kelly, it is in your professional opinion that this is a good thing for Wright County to do, pursuing this?
It is, in my professional opinion, at this day, to tell you that it's a good thing to pursue with regard to where we're at. I don't make this stuff up. It's happening nationwide. It is all over the place. And the money that they're talking about and the abuse that has taken place with the Controlled Substance Act and the fraudulent marketing and having straw doctors out there and telling individuals that opioids isn't just for, you know, the last portion of life and et cetera, but it's not addictive, et cetera, et cetera. there's been some wrongs committed by some people that are making billions of dollars at a cost to us. Now, that litigation is out there, and it's not going to be stopped. And so I think it is a worthy cause to explore when it's on this type of contingency basis. I don't see any downside, so I think it would be something that would be wise to pursue.
Okay, thank you.
For the rest of the board, Commissioner Burrell had asked that he have the opportunity to weigh in on this. So I would ask the board to table this until after the first of the year with Commissioner Burrell, but that's up to you guys.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kelly, what is the time frame before the train leaves the station? Maybe Brian can answer this.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Potter, I don't see the delay as being a particular problem. Again, each lawsuit that these law firms are contemplating is brought on behalf of a specific county, so it's not a class action suit or anything like that. So we would be initiating new litigation if the board decides to go ahead. There's a possibility that that litigation, if brought in federal court, would be lumped in with other cases. They have something called multi-district litigation where cases from other states are all assigned to one particular federal court judge in a particular state. But I don't see the, a couple of weeks delay as being an issue at this point.
I would agree with Ms. Goss.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just follow up with that. With all due respect to Commissioner Burrell, I just want to have that question answered, because if this is time sensitive, we need to take action. If we have a couple weeks to allow him a chance, and I have no problem doing that.
And Mr. Chair, I would comment that the reason I put it on today's agenda was simply because last week was so chock full of other things.
So, Mr. Chair, that would put us into probably the second meeting of January, because the first one's kind of an organizational meeting, and usually not, as far as I remember, not much of anything else besides organizational stuff on that one.
Well, there may be other things.
Yeah.
So we're probably looking at the second meeting in January.
Mr. Chair, Coordinator Kelly, would the 9th be better than the 2nd, or?
Not necessarily.
Okay,
The organizational
so-
meeting does take a while, but we do typically have items later in the meeting, so it could be the first one of the year.
Could.
We do have on the agenda to discuss next week's meeting, so.
All right.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to do that to clarification, so we're not out.
No, understand. Better to know if it is time sensitive. Do you think it will ever become a class action?
Mr. Chair, what I'm told is that, and again, I'm not an expert in class action litigation, but
Well, you're an expert attorney. I thought they were all the same.
what you need, it's easy to get thrown out bringing class action litigation where the parties harmed, in this case the counties, are not necessarily similarly situated.
Right.
And so I think that's why they're going above and beyond here. They realize that they would perhaps have some trouble getting over that hurdle to bring a class action, so.
Because you're right, everybody has been harmed differently.
Yeah.
The bigger the counties are going to have more issues than smaller ones. Okay. So is everybody in agreement to?
Table till.
I encourage any one of my board members to watch that 60-minute, that was on Sunday night. That was an interesting portrayal of the case.
Commissioner Vetch, did you see it?
I did see it.
Yeah, so did I.
I did, so I'm going to go watch it.
So, do we need a motion to table it, or we can
Mr.
just?
Chair, I'll make a motion to table this item until the first meeting of January.
Hey, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Hewsome. There is no discussion on tabling. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Vetch, that would be worthwhile, that 60-minute.
Yes.
January 2nd?
Very worthwhile.
January 2nd?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, quick comment. Is the no discussion on tabling, is that something you learned when you went to that
Yes. But in all honesty, tabling is incorrect.
Okay. So what is the proper?
I can't remember, I got it in my notes. I'll be educating everybody after the first year.
Professor Delighten will be at the helm.
Mr. Chair, second item that I have today is similar to other ones that we've had before the board this year. This is asking for approval to retain Kevin Casserly to perform 3 separate appraisals for purposes of tax court. And when I say 3 separate appraisals, it's actually all a part of the same case. A landowner or a petitioner can lump together properties that are in the same taxing district. These happen to be 3 contiguous properties in the industrial park in Maple Lake. It's just north of 55, way out on the west end of Maple Lake. And we've used Mr. Casserly in the past. He's done good work for us. I don't know whether this one will actually go to trial, but because of the timelines that we're under, with an appraisal due, I think, in early February for these cases, we do have to get started on an appraisal. So I'll be available for any questions there might be.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to retain Kevin Casserly to perform appraisals for the proposals of the tax court.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Houston. Is there any further discussions on this? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
The items the item that I asked to have added to the agenda today has to do with what we refer to as DPPA litigation. That stands for Drivers Privacy Protection Act, I believe. Back in probably 2013 is when a number of these cases started where cities and counties were being sued by parties who were looked up. Their driver's license information was looked up by law enforcement officers. Sometimes people from other county departments, whether it be Human Services or License Bureau. Wright County was named as defendant in probably 10 to 15 different federal court lawsuits. All of those we have been represented by outside counsel through MCIT. All of those have been dismissed or settled. And when I say settled, I can recall 2, I think, where actual monetary damages were paid out.
Were those paid out from the county coffers, or was it MCIT paying them out?
Mr. Chair, my recollection is we may have to pay a deductible. Mr. Kelly may know more about that, but generally those damages are paid through MCIT, I believe.
Typically, yes.
And I don't know what the deductible is. That's a Tim Dollar, Lee Kelly question.
I don't recall offhand.
And do we know what kind of monetary damages they were awarded?
The one I can recall was, I think, a payment of $18,000. They were relatively what I would term nuisance settlements. In other words, it was going to cost more to litigate. The reason I'm here today is that we have one remaining case that is actually scheduled for trial. It has survived motions to dismiss on our part. It's set for trial on January 8th in federal court in downtown St. Paul. We are represented by Jardine Logan O'Brien, which is a firm from over on the east side of St. Paul. They've done great work for MCIT for representing a number of counties. There's 3 counties left in this litigation. I think there were a lot of counties named, and some were dismissed out for statute of limitations reasons. The 3 remaining counties are Wright County, Crow Wing County, and Mille Lacs County, I believe. Let me double check that letter. So my reason for putting it on the agenda today, it's Crow Wing, Mille Lacs, and Wright, is simply to advise you that, there could be media coverage of that. We have 2 driver's license lookups involving 2 Wright County employees that were done a number of years ago. Both employees have been deposed. They have Neither of them has a specific recollection of the lookup. One of the quirks of this case is that the plaintiffs are actually Wright County residents. They're both involved in the media and the news media in the Twin Cities. But they have had reasons to call the sheriff's office for law enforcement purposes, and so a good number, the greater share of our lookups were either dismissed for statute of limitations reasons or that they were legitimate. They were tied to a particular ORI number or report or something in the Zerker system. So I'm just here to answer any questions. I don't know whether the case will actually go to trial. There's a settlement conference with the federal court magistrate on Thursday of this week, and so it's possible that it could settle kind of last minute. So, but again, MCIT has been just a wealth of help in this, and the attorneys that we've been working with have been great to work with.
Good to hear.
Thank you.
As far as the Office of State Auditor litigation, I'm glad you asked. I thought I may have forwarded an email to you regarding the scheduling on that, but if I did not, I'll make sure and
I thought I'd seen something and
forward it again.
February in my mind, but that's why I just wanted an update also for the public. And
no, that's a great idea.
Especially since she's running for governor.
Mr. Chair, the very first day that the Minnesota Supreme Court has oral arguments in 2018, we are set on as one of the first handful of cases. So we're scheduled for 9 a.m. on January 3rd of 2018. Office of State Auditor versus Wright County, Becker County, and Ramsey County. I'm sure that I plan to go. There may be other folks from Wright County that go. If you're not able to actually attend, and the Supreme Court has kind of a fairly small chambers, I'm assuming there'll be some media present for that. They live stream all of their oral arguments now, and I could send you the link to that.
Oh, that'd be great.
And so I watched an argument on another case, I think involving Hennepin County, a few weeks ago, and it's wonderful coverage. So
okay.
Worth checking out.
Regarding that lawsuit, have some of the other counties filed briefs? I want to say friend of the court. I can't remember what it's called. But
Mr. Chair, that's the correct term. They call them amicus briefs, friend of the court briefs. I believe AMC has filed a friend of the court brief on behalf of
the counties.
Becker and Wright, basically, and Ramsey. There are a number of other amicus briefs that have been filed by some groups. There's a taxpayer group. I can't remember the name of the group, but it's a group that happened to have been involved in the traffic diversion issue over the years. There's also a group made up of there's a retired Supreme Court justice on there, a number of other parties who wanted to address the court on the single subject issue. In other words, the issue of whether or not you can tie all of these various things together in an omnibus bill before the legislature. So, that's one of the issues that's out there. This legislation that allowed Wright County and other counties to hire private CPA firms to do our audit was part of a big omnibus tax bill, and so that's one of the issues that the Supreme Court will be looking at, whether or not this violated the so-called single subject rule.
Which will have a huge impact on the legislators.
Correct, Mr. Chair. There is just a fair amount of case law in the past where I think the term they use is mere filament. Filament like in a light bulb, one little tiny. If there is a mere filament of connection to, in this case, the operations of state government, there's a lot of case law that says that this big bill should pass the test, should be constitutional. So we're hopeful for a good result at the Supreme Court.
So out of curiosity and hoping it doesn't happen, but If she loses at the state Supreme Court, she can go farther, can't she?
Mr. Chair, I believe she could. The chances of that happening may not be so great, but, or of the U.S. Supreme Court taking up the case, in other words.
All right.
We're hopeful that it doesn't
That's
go
not
on
gonna-
that long.
No, we can't afford to have it go on that long.
No.
It's already costing, well, what again, how much have we spent so far?
Greg, do you have anything?
40?
On this case?
On the case, yeah. Cost, I should say.
Our county probably 80.
I want to, that's what the amount that was sticking in my mind was that, so Becker and Wright County are represented by Scott Anderson
Yep.
and his firm.
So about 80,000 from each of us,
I believe so.
and it's not done
It's,
yet.
I think it's in excess of that by now because we still are not, we still haven't received bills for like November when some of the final briefing was done, so.
And then there'll be the January cost involved too. I'm sure that won't be cheap. Well, thank you for the updates.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Anybody else have any questions for Brian?
Thank you for the update.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, items for consideration. Commissioner Potter has graciously agreed to provide us with the building committee minutes, all of them.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The building committee did not meet on December 13th. There was not a quorum present. Apologies to the board members. I looked at the thing, but I didn't note the time difference. Usually start at 9. If I'd have known 8 o'clock, I would have informed Coordinator Kelly that I already had a commitment with another committee, Management Committee with Economic Development Partnership. So that was the topic, which was the boardroom sound system, will now be referred to the January committee due to the lack of quorum. And that is all. That does not require any action there because
What was the topic again? I couldn't hear.
Boardroom sound system, that rack.
Sorry, I had to do it.
Yeah, that's the kind of guy you are. Well aware of that.
Yeah, I do know that they do have a tendency to move the different committees around. I don't know if they're doing that purposely, just to keep us on our toes, or if it's just to try and streamline things.
Yeah, my apologies, because I thought, when I saw it, I just assumed 9 o'clock because that's usually when it starts, but the 8 kind of threw me off. And I actually left the other meeting a little early, figuring I had to get here by 9 o'clock. I was like, oh, well.
And then you also agreed to do the committee of the whole minutes?
Yes.
Or with, regarding the Wetland Conservation Act?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Committee of the Whole met December 13th. Members present, Burrell, Delight, Houston, Potter, Vetch, Lee Kelly. Others present, Kreiser, Asselson, Stevenson, Kate Stevenson, he's from the Bowser Board, Wetland Specialist. Chris Euchre, Chair of Soil and Water Board. Supervisors, Jeff Burns, District Supervisor Luke Johnson. The District Manager also noted that there was Dwayne Dahlman from Soil and Water Board, also Mary Wetter was there.
Those two.
On those 2 other ones that were there. And that, who's that other, there was one more gentleman here from that.
Mike.
Andrew.
No, Mike.
Zeisky?
Yeah, thank you.
Zeisky, okay.
Yeah, but there was also Andrew Green, I think, also.
Andrew Green was there too.
Okay. I just want to make sure that all
Yep.
people that were part of that meeting are properly noted that they're on here. And the conversation that came up in that meeting was about the Wetland Conservation Act. There's questions on how things have been sometimes handled at the Soil and Water Board in reference to people on appeals and that. And the Kate Stevenson referred to the 1212 decision memorandum that we wanted to have a structural decision-making appeal option. And what he so graciously afforded us was our standing, where it's at, what options we have under that, and, you know, that they still administer to WACA, which we are all aware of that. And he gave us a few options on the appeal, how we could restructure this to make it more friendly, for lack of better words. They said, Luke Johnson also said there's only 2 or 3 decisions appealed per year, which isn't a large amount, but it is very important to the person that's actually appealing it. And I think that this Commissioner, the board chair, Charlie, Commissioner Burrell, preferred alternate option 3 by moving replacement and banking plan to be heard by the county board instead of SWCD staff. Discussion continued regarding the implications of the county board, SWCD, and the public should board decide on an option other than one. Commissioner Houston said there aren't many disputes. The public may appeal to Bowser if desired. Kreiser also said that after the appeal to Bowser, they could go to court of appeals if they want to. In part of that discussion there, we did have the thing that, so you can appeal it, but then that is very costly. As a person that went through that process, I know it's very costly to do that. So that's not something that everybody is really willing or able to do. Being the cost of it. SWCD Board Chair Chris Euchre said they've made 786 contacts in the past 4 years. Of those, 87 came to the board. Only 4 were denied. 3 went to appeals. The other was pulled. Only 3 people were adversely affected. Again, I'll refer to the people that have been adversely affected, that this is major for them. Commissioner Burrell also expressed concerns regarding decisions made by SWCD board in cases of gray areas, and he noted back that we had a talk with them, a committee of the whole meeting with them before, back when Commissioner Swatsky was here late last year, about the, if it's a gray area, and the understanding that it would weigh towards the landowner if it wasn't cut and clear, and there's question whether they actually did it that way or not. I think this is something that's been a burr under a few people's saddle for a while. SWCD Board Supervisor Jeff Burns said appeals come up only 3 times in the last 4 years. He suggested a couple of alternatives which were received real well here. Delegate several county commissioners to a joint group of SWCD supervisor commissioners vote on the appeals per rise year. That would make 7 members and 2 members of the county board and 5 members of the Soil and Water Conservation District, which it made up of 5 of them, 2 of us. Option would, if option C is chosen, leave the replacement bank plans with the SWCD staff, and if the county board chooses option C, Burns recommends leave it as written. Mr. Kreiser said the current county joint powers agreement with SWCD would have to be amended. He will check with MCIT regarding how this may affect coverage. He didn't see a problem. Commissioner Delight said one of the county board members to hear the appeal should be one is who represents the district in which the appeal originates, which that was widely received by the board, that actually makes sense, that if a commissioner in your district and they feel they have somebody in their corner on this, that they're not, the deck isn't stacked against them. And I think this would also be for more open and add to legitimacy to whatever came out of that, because they would have their day and they would have somebody that would be on their back. On all this, Mr. Chair, the recommendations was to modify the joint powers agreement with the Soil and Water Conservation District to state that 2 commissioners as appointed by the county board will be added to the SWCD Board of Supervisors when appeals are heard, and that the Assistant County Attorney, Greg Kreiser, will work with the Minnesota County's Intergovernmental Government Trust, MCIT, regarding coverage of these case appeal. With that, Mr. Chair, make a motion to approve the minutes and the recommendations.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Houston. Is there any discussions? I do have one. Mr. Kreiser, have you had the opportunity to talk with MCIT, and if any concerns?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, the chair today, Mr. Chair, such a force of habit there, but no, I have not had a chance to talk to MCIT yet. I did get a copy of the draft, or I guess the current joint powers agreement from Soil and Water. I'll make some amendments to it, send it over to MCIT, and my anticipation would be that sometime in January I'll present it to the board as an amendment.
Sounds good.
So I think with the holiday here, we'll give it about a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussions? Nope. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. I'm going to take the Personnel Committee, and Commissioner Houston will be taking the Ways and Means. Personnel and Employee Relations Committee met on December 13th. Members present were Houston, Delyden, Johnson, and Kelly. Others present were Anselman, Edmund, Goodham Schwartz, Hevela, Hoffman, Johnson, Kreiser, Mattice, Meyer, Miller, and Partlow. Item 1 was hire deputy applicant, about 12% of the minimum salary range. We currently have had 18 deputies that left the Wright County Sheriff's Office in 2017. 10 went to other agencies, normally or primary local police department. The other ones retired. We had one that left. He was on the narcotics unit and the emergency response team. He went to a local police department. Things aren't as rosy. The grass isn't green as it was, is what they thought. So he lost seniority at the county. The request from the Sheriff's Department is start him above the 12% above minimum to bring closer to its previous pay range of $31.60. At 30% above the minimum pay range, his pay would be less than when he left, but satisfactory. Hoffman said this deputy's former experience with the county would reduce the amount of time needed to bring him up to speed. The recommendation was authorized rehiring the former deputy at 30% above the minimum pay range. Item 2 was a new job description for Park Patrol and an increase of 1 full-time employee. Hoffman had said the county currently funds a seasonal temporary park position in the parks budget for about $20,000. There's no job description that exists for this position. The reserve officers who drive around in marked squad cars and they visit all the county parks, but they have no authority to issue any citations. They work in the summer, spring, and fall, and on some weekends and occasional weekday shifts, depending on holidays and that sort of stuff. So the sheriff would like to do 2 things. The sheriff's office would like to give this position more authority. The county would draft an ordinance giving this position the ability to enforce all park ordinances, the aquatic invasive species, AIS ordinance, as well as others, and write citations. Hoffman has drafted a job evaluation request and questionnaire. He has not written the job description yet. And then item 2 is to hire a full-time park patrol position in addition to the $20,000 that covers the current seasonal park patrol position, as there's more than enough work to justify this position. So what is suggested was that they would transfer that $20,000 budget from the parks over to the sheriff's office. Some of the issues that they've been having is just in those 23 calls in 18 days from October 11th through 28th regarding the AIS, which we heard a little bit out earlier. So the seasonal park patrol officers and a proposed full-time officer would be responding to these calls to reduce the load on deputies. Assistant County Attorney Greg Kaiser said the full-time position should be referred to as a special deputy, and they're in the process of working all those sort of information out together. Hoffman has searched job descriptions at other counties, and the salary ranges from $13.24 to $18.55 per hour. Sergeant Brian Johnson said Wright County Parks Rangers make about $15.80 per hour. Commissioner Houston had asked what the impact on the full-time position would be on the budget. Hoffman estimated about $60,000 per year, including benefits, but that would not include any grant reimbursements. And Shauna Ottman said she estimates $1.2 million from 2017 will be turned back to the county in 2018. Captain Dan Anselman said that $20,000 currently budgeted for parks would be used to fund the seasonal park patrol. Discussion ensued regarding the hours the full and part-time positions would work. Sergeant Johnson said it is easier to find part-time workers for weekends. Hoffman said he would like the job description for the special deputy to include enforcement and citation powers. Sergeant Johnson said a separate job description is needed for the seasonal park patrol. So the recommendations were proceed with developing job descriptions in the proposed full-time special deputy and the seasonal park patrol positions, and refer the drafting of an enforcement ordinance to the Ways and Means Committee. Item 3 was the job reclassifications for office technician 1, 2, and accounting technicians, and this is in the Auditor's Office. Chief Deputy Auditor Tammy Vase had these requests were submitted to the former Human Resources Director about a year ago. No action had been taken. They met with the new Human Resources Director and knowing that he was on the learning curve, stepped back from it for a while. 3 things they'd like to do is reclassify some of the office technicians, OT1s to OT2s. They want to replace 4 auditor treasurer OT2 positions with a new job description called taxation process specialist, which includes an addendum for property tax specialist and one for land records. And 3, change the job description for 2 accounting technician positions in the auditor's treasurer's office to payroll specialist, as these employees primarily perform payroll functions only, unlike other technicians in the county. Johnson said pay equity has to be evaluated. Positions with different names that are performing the same functions can be a problem. Currently, all the accounting technicians have payroll in their job descriptions, which is not correct. Johnson distributed a document entitled Weighing of Factors, which is attached to your packets. Qualifications are important, but not only consideration. Human resources look at minimum job qualifications versus maximum job qualifications. Tammy Vase said the OTI changes, OT1s, would create a new position, but would become an addendum to the OT2 positions. Auditor Treasurer currently has 6 OT1 employees, including elections, and 4 office technicians, 2. The request is to reclassify the OT1s to OT2s, except for 1 who works as a receptionist. Hivela said that the bureaus, licensed bureaus, would remain the same in OT1s. I did express concerns regarding these changes causing problems in the future, as well as budget implications. My biggest concern is that we are going into a classification study, and I don't know how this is going to affect that and end up changing all sorts of things. I said that let the full county board decide about changing the OT1 positions to OT2s. The payroll appears in generic accounting technicians job descriptions. Other departments don't do payroll activities. I agreed with the payroll specialist job descriptions should be created since it encompasses different responsibilities from other accounting technicians. Commissioner Houston agreed. Bill said the word payroll should be removed from the existing accounting technician job description. Harlow asked whether this would lower the pay grade of that position. He really recommended leaving the accounting technician job description as it is and let the findings from the upcoming classification studies determine whether grade change is necessary. Johnson thought the creation of the taxation process specialist job description with 2 addendums, property tax specialist and land record specialist, would accomplish the goals with minimal impact on other departments, but he will have to get the union's approval. I said no steps will be taken regarding changing the auditor's treasurer's 1 to auditor OT1s to OT2s at this time due to the pending classification studies. So the recommendations were creating new job descriptions for taxation process specialists, which includes 1 addendum for property tax specialist positions, another for the land record specialist position, and 2 to change the job descriptions for 2 accounting technicians positions in the auditor's treasurer's office to payroll specialist. Item 4 was the workplace expectation professional standards. I'm not going to go into this. You have the information in the packet. This has been tabled until January 2018 Personnel Employee Relations Committee. We want to have a standards that's standard.
Countywide.
Countywide instead of having HHS having 1 set, and so
And Mr. Chair, we do have our personnel policy also.
Yeah, so we're looking at that and trying to figure out how the best way to proceed is. It just doesn't make sense to have all these different things. We should all be acting in the same manner. And if you look at it, a lot of it's just common sense.
Common sense.
You know, so it should be, so, everybody.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is government. Common sense has no place here.
Yeah, I realize that, but remember, we got elected to try and change a few things.
That is fact.
Bring common sense back.
Yeah. Performance review, item 5, Greg Picard, Veteran Service Officers. Based on 4 performance reviews, the committee recommends the ratings of meets expectations. So I guess that means we're going to keep him around for another year.
Yeah, we sure are happy to have him here.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna backtrack. I want to get some clarification. So on the Parks patrol position, is that I guess confused, was it a licensed deputy or is it not a licensed deputy? It's
No.
Okay, that's what I thought, but reading it, but there was just wanted to get a clarification on that, so.
The intent is to move it to a non-licensed position.
Okay,
But it's kind of like, you know, in some cities they have, what are they called,
Right.
CSOs?
Yes.
Yeah, they can write citations and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And-
that's what I thought, but I noticed in there where it said Hoffman said that it may or may not be, so or not necessarily. I was just curious what our intent was, so, yeah, thanks.
And Mr. Chair, Commissioner Vetch, I made a recommendation that we include somewhere in the job description the word special deputy, because that mirrors state statute, which is your authority to
Right.
appoint
Yeah.
them.
I did say
So
that.
we can change the heading to whatever we want, Park Patrol, CSL, special deputy, but I just asked personnel that they include that statutory language somewhere within the 5-page description.
Perfect. It makes sense, the whole move on it from the Parks Department to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just curious what we were.
Do I hear a motion?
I will make a recommendation to accept the minutes and the recommendations.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Potter. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Potter?
In reference to item 1, I would like Sheriff Joe Haggerty to come up and address this if he could. Because the public's going to look at this, and we have that 12% above range, and this particular deputy is coming in at 30%, and I see 10 years' experience is hard to come by, first off, and I want to explain so the public knows why we're doing it, because this is kind of an isolated case. This is way outside the realm of normal.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Potter. We've been trying to recruit for years, and we compete with the metro agencies. Up till about 15 years ago, we'd maybe lose somebody to the state patrol. That was really about it. Yeah, usually don't lose them to other counties. It's generally the metro, which pay a little more. I think we have a lot more to offer if you're really into being a cop and you want to solve crimes, and certainly community, Wright County is where you ought to be. Just a lot of opportunity here. We had three of our deputies in the past couple of years leave to the same police department, a smaller police department, probably 15, 16, 17 staff people there. All 3 of them had connections to that city, had either volunteered there before or grew up there. But I think when you work for an agency our size and you start getting some of those opportunities, especially in this case with the deputy in question, a very valued member of our office, well-trained, 10 years, and not everybody that leaves I would invite back. Please come back. This one is one we certainly would like back. I think it sends a message to other people in our agency that it's a pretty good place to work, and we've had 3 people come back, sworn positions, deputies. We've had a couple dispatchers come back. We've had a couple clerical people come back once they left. So I think somebody mentioned the grass isn't always greener. That's true. Law enforcement's law enforcement pretty much everywhere you go in the state. But if I can get him back in close to where he was, I think it helps with our recruiting efforts. I think it helps with retaining employees. And he's been a hit for us, and he'll continue to be. We'll put very little into training him. My guess is a couple of weeks in the car, he'll be ready to go. He won't be going back into the Special Investigations Unit. We rotate people through there. He'd be hitting the road.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sheriff, this is what the point I want to get across. Is this particular deputy, we've invested time, money, energy, and training and experience, and that's where it's worth our while to go in this direction with this person, because we've already got the training, got the experience, and to start somebody fresh, we're going to take up that 30% in cost and training already. So we're actually saving money by doing this and getting somebody that is known, trusted commodity back in the fold.
Right, and he'll be working as a 10-year deputy, pretty much right out of the chute. It's going to lose all the seniority.
Right, and that's,
If he was looking at working days in the near future, that's going to be put off little ways, but he could certainly end up in another division within our office.
Choices we make in life.
Choices we make, exactly. But we're very happy to have him back, and I certainly thank the Personnel Committee and the board for your support on this.
yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'm guessing this individual came back with some more additional training that they got from their outside department that they worked at in the meantime, so this person probably increased their education.
Certainly with different systems, different record management systems, some of the technology would be different. He would have been wearing a body camera, which we will have eventually. He'd probably be the only one we have in our office that has experience with it. And we use deputies on our in-house technology committee when we're exploring body cameras, different technologies, and he'd certainly be able to bring something to the table on that.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I think that the fact that he wants to come back knowing he's lost his 10 years of seniority, which is huge, and to bring him up to close to what he was making when he left is only fair, I believe.
Totally agree.
Quick question. I don't remember if we asked it, but how long ago had he left?
He left probably May.
Okay, so it wasn't very long.
Correct.
All righty.
All right.
Anybody else have any other questions regarding personnel committees?
Nope.
Nothing? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Houston, would you please take care of us with the Ways and Means Committee?
The Ways and Means Committee met on December 13th, 2017. Members present, Burrell, Hewsome, L. Kelly. Others present, Eric Herring, Mike Young, Detchen, and Regine. And the two items were we met with the Ag Inspector, Eric Herring, for his 2017 year-end report. And he gave we have the report also, but just a few of the highlights. He's worked with the Soil and Water Conservation District to establish the pesticide applicator classes for township, county, and city employees. And there had a little lack of interest, and sometimes it's hard for the people to get to the classes and that kind of thing. This was the first year that he proctored the pesticide exams, which were held here at the Government Center. He attended the 3 township meetings, January, April, and July, and also held pesticide applicator workshop through the Extension Office. A few of the things, he dealt with the wild parsnip, Oriental bittersweet, and teasel. I hadn't heard of Oriental bittersweet before that meeting, but he sprayed several times with soil and water. He sent out 122 violation notices or notices of noxious weeds in 2017 compared to 55 in 2016. And also, Canadian thistle was another noxious weed that he spent time enforcing with its eradication. He noted that everyone that received a notice this year will receive notices in 2018 to remind them to continue to control noxious weeds. He's also going to be collaborating with the WCD to apply for a grant through the Minnesota Department of Ag in 2018 for the purposes of eradicating species by providing more scouting and control measures, as well as hiring someone to spray the rail lines. This was kind of an interesting thing too, but they have knapweed weevils, which actually doesn't harm any other plants, but they go in for spotted knapweed and eat those. So I was like, well, that's a nice natural way to control that. He briefly discussed how the hiring of Ag and Drainage Coordinator position, Matt Detchen, would impact the Ag Inspector's role. Commissioner Burrell stated that the new position would be more involved with the drainage system of the county and not affect Eric's role. So Matt Detchen would be more of a liaison for Eric. Recommendation to renew the appointment of Eric Herring as the county agriculture inspector for 2018 with an annual rate of $15,000. Just a couple of typos with the spelling of Eric's name and as instead of at, thanks. The second item was a drainage inspector, Mike Young, 2017 year-end report. And he also reviewed some of the highlights. And he said that the most notable change is that he was more of a reactive year in 2017, primarily due to the redetermination and reestablishment of records. There are 5 new repairs entered, with 8 repairs completed and closed. So he's working with the SWCD regarding best management practices for JD 15, anticipating that 2018 will be more proactive because he'll be working with our Ag and Drainage Coordinator to identify a more proactive approach to repairing and maintaining county drainage infrastructure. So he notes that he's fine with his current wage, not looking for an increase in 2018. So the recommendation, renew the appointment of Mike Young as the county's drainage inspector for 2018, retaining the same rate as set forth in the 2017 agreement. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a recommendation to approve the minutes and the recommendation.
I'll second that.
A motion, not a recommendation.
Motion by Commissioner Newsom, second by Commissioner Potter. Is there any other discussions?
Yes, Mr. Chair. In reference to Eric hiring, I've had a couple talks with him throughout the year on extensive talks about this. In fact, just last Friday, had talked with him on this. And people that have commented back to me said he's very personable. He's there to provide solutions, not point the finger and call them bad people. I think it's been an asset for the county to have somebody so proactive and caring. Coming from the agricultural background, he speaks the language, so to speak, with the people there, knows how to talk to them, and he is, in my opinion, well respected within people in the county and the job he's doing. And that was my comment for him.
No, I think he's done a lot more than our past one. The one concern I have is municipal employees are not required to be licensed. Now, if I remember correctly, we have licensed applicators at the county and the highway department. So why are we required to have that and the cities aren't? I just was kind of curious on that because I know there are some that, because they were asking for a higher rate of pay for their applicator's license, and they actually have to have it every year. And I'm just kind of curious.
Either it has to do with the chemicals that they're putting down, or is it having to do with that there's just an exemption in the law at the state level that exempts municipalities?
I don't know. It's maybe we can get an attorney to research it. Brian?
I'm not here.
Okay.
They didn't make eye contact with each other, so that means Brian assumed the role.
No, I just found it interesting that since the county has to do it, why doesn't the city? And is it because...
It could be quantity, it could be type of chemical.
Yeah,
Well, it's possible, but I have a feeling it's not those. It may be mileage or because we're doing it on roadways, but I'd be willing to bet the cities are doing it in the same space as we are. So I'd just be really curious.
Yeah.
I'd blame it on a lawyer.
It might be a safety issue as well, because the chemicals are dealing with
Yeah, but I would think that if you're doing noxious weeds and that sort of stuff, the county's be using the same things as the city. The city, so that's why I just can't believe that they're using something completely different at the city. They're going to be using the product that works. But But that's why we do have attorneys on staff to look up those questions, right?
I don't have anything else to do.
Is there any other discussions?
And you got through all the committees, thinking this, we didn't have IT on there, otherwise I tell you, we'd be going for another half hour.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries unanimous. Mr. Lee Kelly, county board meeting for next Tuesday.
Mr. Chair, this was laid over from last week. The only things that I've been made aware of, Health and Human Services just sent me an email within the last 10 minutes stating they have a consent item. And there was one other one that, for the Parks Department, an appointment to the board that I think could wait till next week. Other than that, I'm not aware of other items that have been submitted at this time.
And the one from Health and Human Services is not a rush?
It's a grant.
Yeah, it was for a grant application for Central Minnesota Mental Health and one other grant, I believe it was. 2 letters of support, basically, which they indicated they did want signed prior to the beginning of the year.
It's not something we can give an unofficial support at this point, at this time, at this meeting.
It would be best if it came in front of the board, I guess, just so you could see the documents, I guess would be my thought.
Just, so.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I mean, if we have action items like that, that we,
If it's time sensitive.
I believe that we should have that meeting on the 26th. It will be probably quite brief, but
Yeah.
if we have time-sensitive items, that's the only way we can handle it, unless we call another special
One of the
meeting.
grants was quite small. I think it was like $1,300, I think it was.
But still.
Well, Mr. Chair, Coordinator Kelly, would that be something that we could do with a 3-day notice and have a meeting on Friday?
It's possible, yes, if we would
Instead of-
maintain 3-day notice and
Instead
have
of
a special board
day
meeting.
after Christmas? No?
I think I got something Friday. Back
I
in
mean,
my
I'm
office.
okay with doing Tuesday too. That's, I mean, that's fine. I just
That's
feel
fair.
bad to bring all the staff, that people that weren't gonna be in here
I know.
for literally a 10-minute meeting. That's the reason I'm trying to avoid
And
it.
that's what my concern was too, is that I don't want to waste.
Well,
At that point, I'd rather wait and do it, call a meeting on the 27th or 28th, do it on Thursday that week, so if other things
Okay,
come up
well-
between then and the end of the year, they can still put it in and not be, because I think more staff, more people around here are not as likely to be on the 26th as they probably would be on, say, the 28th. But I don't, does it have to necessarily,
Yeah,
if we're gonna have a meeting, I'd rather hopefully maybe we'll be able to cover a few more things and shorten the meeting on January 2nd then.
sure.
But that's just,
Mr. Chair, Coordinator Kelly, do you know of people that are going to be not here on the 26th specifically?
We'll have enough staff-wise to cover it.
Okay.
It's just, it's another agenda we're putting
That's
out there.
probably the cleanest way to do it.
Yeah.
that's fine. I'm just throwing ideas out there, so I'm not opposed to it.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Being that the 26 is traditionally like a claims only, very nothing big items there, even though we have a couple action items clean up before the end of the year. I think moving it creates more problems for staff than not.
Sure.
And this will be a quick, they're nothing real controversial, but coming out, most of them are pretty clean and simple, and it would just behoove us just to go through it, get done with it.
No, if there's things that need to be done, then we should do them.
Yep, we should.
I just want to make sure that,
And if some commissioner has to prior obligation or commitment to go on vacation during this time, I have no problem with that.
Is Commissioner Burrell going to be here? We could actually put Brian's item back on the 26th then for the opioid.
he claims he will be using a walker, but he
Yeah,
claims that he will be.
Yeah.
If you would,
And he has texted me saying that he's watching us. He said, Mike, to sit up straight, straighten your tie.
That's straighten your tie, you're slouching.
Other than that, but yeah, he plans on being here next week, Tuesday.
Okay.
So I guess.
Do we need a motion?
No.
It's a
just discussion.
standing meeting as of right now,
Yep.
so
we don't have to do anything.
say we just
All right.
continue on.
Then let's go forward with it.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that we weren't wasting people's time.
I'm with you there too.
If we have time, effective, or sensitive issues, then we got to do it.
I anticipate it will be a short meeting, and unfortunately, it sounds like a few things came in the last minute. So
It happens.
Hard as you try, you
don't want to go on a soapbox, but I think we're reacting a little bit to a few things here. So.
Well, it is what it is. Item C, schedule meetings with legislators.
Mr. Chair, as to your request to schedule a meeting with legislators, I had reached out to those that represent Wright County regarding meeting on January 23rd at 11 o'clock. I've heard back from the majority of them. A few of them have given a hard yes. Some are still working on their schedules, may be able to make it, and a few have given a hard no. So right now we have 2 guarantees and 2 potentially also able to attend, but narrowing down schedule. So
How many have given us a definite no?
1, 2. So 2, 2, and 2.
Okay.
So I guess my thoughts, we could schedule for the date that I had suggested, the January 23rd at 11 a.m., or we could look at some alternative dates to also pitch and hold more than one meeting or move the meeting. So,
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Potter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we start to reschedule and bounce this around, we're going to lose all of them.
Yeah, it's going to be
Because right
tough.
now, they're already getting booked up by every single entity out there. And if they can make it on the 23rd, great. If they can't, just dangle the carrot that we'll have media here, and they will show up. Because it seems like that works. Last time we had TV cameras in here, they showed up.
So January 23rd, what time are we doing on the 23rd?
Recommended 11 a.m.
11 a.m.
Is that a Tuesday?
Yep.
It is, yes.
Yeah, I would really like to have as many here as possible. I hate to do it with just 2.
Hopefully,
If we can at least have 3,
yep.
that would be.
So are
I
we,
mean, it's important to
Yeah.
what we're trying to do.
right. And do we have a member from each, the House and the Senate?
Well, one of the senators have definitely said no.
Appears we just have the House at this point. So I'll follow up again with them or their staff.
Okay.
And I would have to say that if we only get 2 yeses, that we should try and find an alternate date. And I understand that it's going to be difficult, but to provide the information to 2 of our representatives, I don't think is going to benefit a whole lot of people.
Correct.
So that's just my personal opinion. So we'll continue to go with what we have for that. Did we last week make a date for when we're going to get together?
That was going to be my second statement.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if you want to do that as one motion or 2, but I was going to recommend, since it is a Tuesday, maybe meet after the board meeting on January 9th as the board to discuss the legislative platform.
Do we have anything else planned on the 2nd?
Not that I'm aware of at this time.
Yeah, it might just be a big day.
I just, well, we can do it afterwards. I'm just thinking, I don't want to wait and just have a week, or I want to be able to gather information. Once we decide these are important to us,
Okay.
I would like to have as much time to maybe have a bow tie attorney try and find us as much information to back us up.
So are we leaning towards the 16th then, or are you wanting to go?
We don't have the 16th. We have no.
Oh, yeah, that's right, 16th we canceled, so.
So that's why I don't like to do it on the 9th.
So you want to go the 11th?
Well, can we do it after a board meeting on the 2nd?
Well, either that or on committee day.
We can go the 10th, yeah.
Well, no, then we're 9th, then we're getting into the same time frame.
Yeah, then you can go, the 17th isn't committee, so, but, I mean, we have Health and Human Services on, we can't do the 22nd, that's too close. So, you'd have to go the 11th or 12th, 15th, or 15th is a holiday, so, 17th?
Then again, then we only have a week.
Do you want to go the 17th?
No, that's even less. He's only
Plus a
given
week.
6 days to
So
do it.
then you'd be looking at the 11th or 12th then. I mean, I'm okay with either one of them.
Why not the 2nd?
Or the 9th.
Well, you were talking the 9th anyway, weren't you?
Discussing the 9th, yes. We would have to go a little later in the day as we do have the quarterly leadership meeting that morning following the board meeting.
Yep.
Well, Mr. Chair, maybe it's just easier to have it on the 2nd at 11 o'clock.
Well, either the 2nd, you know.
Might as well just do it on the 2nd. That will afford everybody the time to gather information.
Yep, then you'll have your 3 weeks.
I want to make sure that what we present to them is factual and pertinent, and not a bunch of pie-in-the-sky stuff. The more factual information we have, and if you've had a chance to look at the few items that have been sent over to us, priorities from the other ones, and whether or not, you know, we're going to have to narrow it down, so we need to figure out what's going to be the best.
Yeah, and keep in mind, it's a short session and a bonding session, so we're...
Which is the other reason why we want to narrow it down. And our coordinator's also going to find out what Sherburne County is also considering.
So
We need to find out again, you know, I would say one thing that rises to the top is the money we spent to, against the state auditor's office, that we get reimbursed for that, because that whole thing was brought about because of legislators.
And it got all the way to the conference committee and got bounced off the conference committee, so it was, we were getting reimbursed for that all the way through the conference committee, and it came out of the conference committee, that was out.
But it's not fair for our county our county residents to have to pay for something
With all that, Mr. Chair, I think that the 2nd would make the most sense at 11 o'clock.
All right.
And I'd make a motion to schedule the meetings with the legislators on the, was it 22nd? 23rd?
Was it 23rd?
23rd, 11 o'clock.
I'll second that motion.
And the other one was the, with the
we need the vote.
legislative outlook for us to discuss at 11 o'clock on the 2nd.
Yep.
And that will be, what, 10:30 on January 2nd? 11 o'clock?
Or 11.
I'd go for 11.
11?
Typically, that is a longer meeting with the
Okay.
organizational meeting.
Correct.
All right. I have a motion by Commissioner Potter. Did I have a second?
Yes.
Second by Commissioner Houston. Is there any further discussions regarding this? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Committee meetings, advisory board appointment schedules.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a bit of a cleanup to incorporate those changes that we are aware of prior to setting, using the same information and setting our per diem resolution and setting our committee appointments for the first meeting of the year. So a few changes which are noted in red in your packet. We are removing Central Minnesota Mental Health, adding the Minnesota Rural Counties, and then the Trailblazer and WCAT groups.
If I have a question regarding on page 1, nuclear. I think they crossed out the wrong thing because we got Houston Vetch, Coordinator, Emergency Management Director, and it had Assistant Deputy Director, and that's crossed off, and then Emergency Management Director.
Deputy.
Deputy.
Oh, I see. I didn't see that. Okay. Sorry, can't read. And then on page 3, legislator matters. I've never heard of that one before.
Well, it's always been there, but we have never met. But now we are.
Now we are.
Now we are, so it's a good thing we have that committee because we're going to be meeting on January 2nd.
Well, I just found it interesting, you know, that in the past, it's stated that it meets quarterly on the third Wednesday in February, May, August, and November at 7 p.m.
Oh.
7 p.m.
Yeah, that's...
So I would just I guess I just never noticed that one before.
So, Mr. Chair, a proposed change for that is to just remove all that language. It says as needed.
Yep.
Make it simple, so when an issue comes up, we can do it then instead of having a set, because, you know, we're subject to their scheduling for budget year, bonding year, session length, everything else, and I would like to clean that up to just say as needed.
I would say either that or every January, December,
That would be,
November.
yeah, every, either, January, December, it should be,
I mean, I think it should be done. And, you know, maybe November is better, or the first part of January. When, did it
really
always?
you meet in, I would say you meet somewhere in November, December to kind of get together what you're thinking, and then you
Well,
meet again
yeah.
in January to adopt
Yeah.
Well,
platform, but yeah.
but I mean, as needed is, that way you could meet.
Accomplish the same thing.
Yeah, I just, what I'd like to do though is I want to make sure that it happens.
Well, depends
know,
if
but
people are
what-
paying attention up here or not.
When did, well, no, there's other boards in the past, or in the future.
Okay.
Do they
so
always start in February?
January
It
sometimes.
varies. I don't recall how it's set, but it varies. It's not exactly the same date.
They start in January one year and the next year in
February. So bonding years, it's February.
Right.
And normal, it's in January.
January through
See,
May.
so then January would not be a good time.
It's true, yep,
And
January.
Decembers are so busy, and that's why,
As needed then.
okay?
Another thing that I thought of is the soil and water modification, does that need to be listed on there as well?
My thought was after we get the ordinance and such all done, then it could be added. It's kind of, I would call it an unborn issue at this time, but I would agree in the future it should be listed. Or at least reflected under the soil and water piece.
And Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Potter?
one other item on the committee advisory board appointments. In reference to the Highway 25 Corridor Coalition, I did make a commitment to former Commissioner Swatsky that if the commissioner representing that district so wanted to be on that board, that I would afford them, and this board would afford them the opportunity to be the primary point on that board. And to that, I asked Commissioner Vetch if that's his desire. Because if he does, I will relinquish that to you. And if you're okay with the way it is, we'll keep it the way it is.
And we'll discuss that in January then and figure out where we want to be with that, so.
Okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to bring that back to the attention because that was one of the things that I know I had agreed to and we'd agreed to with former Commissioner Swatsky on that one.
Anybody else have any concerns or anything? This is just informational.
I'd like you to adopt the schedule if you could today.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt the committee meeting advisory board schedule.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Hewson. Is there any further discussions regarding these? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. You know, we could have taken Commissioner Burrell off a number of these.
Well, we're gonna talk about that in January. This
Or
is just for
Adam.
this is just for the, okay. Just eliminate committees or what?
Well, that, or, yeah, Commissioner Potter's right too, we could add him to some. You know, that's what he gets for not being here, we can outnumber him.
Now, I just got a message a while ago, popped up on my screen, that you said Michael did a great job on the soil and water minutes, the committee of the whole minutes. So, hats off to you, Commissioner Potter.
Not running for re-election right now.
Item E, mileage reimbursement rates.
We are required to set our mileage reimbursement rate. The IRS has just released their guidance that they are going to be doing 54.5 cents per mile in 2018. The county can adopt as it so feels fit. We have been at 50 cents for a number of years over the past years. So I guess the discussion, would you like to continue at 50 cents or adopt the IRS rate for 2018?
We've always been,
For a long time.
historically, always been less than that.
We have.
Always been less than that.
Mr. Chair, I'm comfortable with 50 cents a mile.
You know, the thing is, and it affects the employees. I mean, I'm
I know it
comfortable
does.
with it too.
But is there any legal reason why you would be more beneficial to be tied to the IRS side of it versus using a lower rate to it, you know, from a standpoint?
Just saves money for the county.
Yeah, I mean.
4 cents times probably 100,000 miles cumulative. I have no idea. I'm just throwing a high number out there, but yeah.
Mr. Chair, this particular mileage reimbursement at the library board, the Great River Regional Library Board, was 75% of the IRS, and it became a contention with the unions. So we went as a concession as far as that'll be acted on tonight is to raise it to the IRS rate. Because there's a suggestion about raising it to 50 cents, and which I figure for the difference in cost, at least the library board, it wasn't worth the squabble to get this thing settled, and we just went with the IRS rate. And I have no problem with the 50 cents. I just don't have the calculations on how much money we're talking about the effect, because I think that's something that needs to be discussed at budget time.
And it might be something that we should discuss in next year, but.
Well, exactly. You know, hardest thing is we set a rate now. I suppose we could revise it if gas prices decided to astronomically change somewhere throughout the year, and all of a sudden we're at $3.75 a gallon. And
Well, it depends on where you buy it from. If it's 20 cents cheaper here in Buffalo than it is in St. Michael.
Wow.
Because, Mr. Chair, this does have budget implications, even though at the library board, it was not very significant compared to here. It might be very significant here, and you hate to arbitrarily go with something and all of a sudden have a $50,000 impact to the budget. I'd rather let's review this again at budget time and say, okay, how much would this cost us if we did this? So we walk into this.
What do you want? Do you want to actually
just stay at what we
stay
have?
We're at, or?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to continue the mileage reimbursement rate of 50 cents per mile for the year 2018.
I'd be curious what that difference, that 4.4 cents would be at how many miles cumulative we have as a county, because I have no idea what that number is, you know.
I have a motion by Commissioner Potter. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second by Commissioner Houston.
with the caveat that let's discuss this at budget time next year, and we'll have information, numbers of just what that boils down to.
That number would difference would look like,
How
yeah.
much we're paying out for mileage now.
Yep.
So now we can have discussions if you want.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, I forgot. Breaking your parliamentary
procedure.
mastery.
Do you have any more?
No.
Cornelius Kelly, any questions on it or suggestions?
The only comment I guess I'll make is we do run our county motor pool, which does do a lot of miles. We work that internally at 40 cents per mile, so that does cover a lot of miles driven by employees. However, there are still some that we do pay 50 cents to for use of their vehicle. So, I mean, 100,000 miles at 4 cents is $4,000 or $40,000. So it adds up. It's real money.
Mm-hmm.
We can get some research done to try and get a good handle on what we might be paying, or how many miles we might be paying on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
that's what I think we need to do.
I think it's a little 4,000 here, oh, it's not that big of a budget bust, or 2,000 here, it starts adding up.
Mr. Chair, any further discussion on this?
Pardon?
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On this, we owe it to the public when we set a budget hearing to make sure that we're looking at all things, and when we present the budget and then we do the final budget, it's kind of tough if we haven't done things that do have an impact like this, whether it's 40,000 or 60,000. We still need to know what it is going in, and that's why I welcome, let's get the numbers where it's at, so we can make sure that we're presenting a good budget to the people.
Yeah, it's also multiple departments too.
Correct.
So, all right, any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Advisory committees.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start it off. Last Thursday, I was part of the MnDOT Variance Committee again. I've been fortunate to be part of that. I like being part of that. I always tease them that I'm the only one that non-engineer there, so I bring common sense to the equation. It's also been more interaction with MnDOT. Actually has been helping Wright County here in the last
few years. That was good. I'm hoping to be on the next one in March here. I couldn't make the 25 coalition. I thank Commissioner Vetch for filling in and getting that, and Rayanne Danielson from Mayor Big Lake said you did a great job, and she was asking me if I quit it or not. I said I just had other commitments. But that was, you know, he's well versed in this. He gets copied on everything. Next thing we had is at 12:30 we had the Courts Executive Committee, and I will leave a copy of what we talked about. Interior build-in reviews, and went through a whole list of things to shorten it up. Proposed alternate cell orientation, some of the things, mechanical, electrical systems were within that. Back up to the building system, they checked out the generator and it can handle everything, both of them. There was question whether it could or not, and the question's been answered, yes it can. Redundant conduits to be provided between LEC and new server rooms. We went through that with Adam Tagaro to make sure we're going to put an extra conduit in there and make sure it's more than big enough, because we don't want to, once it's built, we want to make sure we got that covered.
And we don't know what the future will bring.
Correct. And
technology.
And some of the decision providing locks only on director, supervisor, and lead worker's office within the departments, because the cost of those locks are expensive, and see at what level of security do you need. Secondary exits, which are required by code in exit in courtrooms, second floor, the 4 and the second floor. The secondary exit in the back of the courtroom, not where the judges go, but in case of emergency, it's required because of the size of the building is code. It's nothing we can really sit and argue on too much. So they did show a diagram where those would fit in and who would be there, and then the question of the bailiff is going to be in the way or bailiff is going to direct, you know, so it's questions on things that when we're getting into this size building, we have to meet certain codes. You know, we got to make sure that the judges, court administration, everybody knows what the procedure is there. The retention pond, another thing, this was actually a bigger item than first previously discussed, but the architectural and civil directed to explore moving the retention pond to the county-owned land to the north across that road. It's not Braddock, I can't remember what that other road is called.
There's no, I don't think there's a name.
Yeah, this Sheriff's Road, Joe's Road.
Yeah.
Because at first we were going to put it in the northwest corner of that current land configuration, but the discussion centered around if at some point in time in the future the possibility of moving the administration out there, if that comes to fruition or not, by spending a little extra money now and putting it over there. You say it's $100,000 additional cost now, it's going to save at least $500,000 later down the road if we decide to fill it in and move it later. Mm-hmm. So the question is, do we do it now, do we do it later? And then the other part of the equation is how much material. They're going to do some soil borings, what overburden from when they put the sheriff's support building, what material is useful, how big is it going to be, you know, all kinds of questions come up, but it definitely is something that needs to be explored, because if we do it this way and say for some reason the admin goes out there, we'll be glad we did it, and so will future board if that's what happens.
Well, I also noticed that in some preliminary designs, if everything moved out there, that area crossed that Sheriff Street, by the sport where they're planning on putting it, that had parking lot.
Correct. That was.
So I mean, it would make more sense to put the pond over there in a parking lot closer to buildings.
And that was the other reason for it too. There was an additional cost factor to putting it across there, but I think the savings to a potential future configuration far outweighs what the cost on the upfront is. And it'll be the review proposal we've developed by WENC. We have to go through planning and zoning for this. Mr. Kreiser was there, and we discussed how the procedure got to go, because if we want to break ground, we got to get some of these things done. So they're moving forward to that. And the verified addition of audio-visual design for all conference spaces to the work scope. No, because again, the audio-visual design, because some of it, all conference space, including the current LEC, which is scheduled for an upgrade from the old analog or whatever. I think this is part to be included with that. Well, we're doing it for the courts, let's do it for that and just get done with it. It makes sense to do that.
like saying that ties into the next one, the design and replacement of existing analog cameras throughout the jail and everywhere else. Limited technology scope and bid with construction project, likely a separate technology package and quotes of bids. Exact descent to be determined. This again was Adam Tagaro. We want to make sure we're not missing anything here. This is very important to make sure we get this one correct. This is real important. So that's why I want to just, I'll beat this horse to death quite a few times, make sure we get this right.
You can only die once.
You know, I know we've got the materials and color palette was verified and simplified. We've been back and forth on what's carpet, what's the walls, what's this. Went through design, and I believe that the BKB would have that on a video for us, or not, can be accessed. Coordinator Kelly, so people can actually, if they want to see what us in the executive committee saw, they would be able to see that.
Yep, sure. We'd have both the documents that were presented. If you met with them in person, they could walk you through the building visually. As far as the actual materials, the touch and feel, Alan has sample boards of all those up in his area. If you want to come and
Those haven't
take a look.
changed since the last time they presented them. As a committee of the whole, or at least not much.
Very minimally.
No, so pink is out?
McMillan still has his red.
Okay.
That was a common topic at the meeting, so I just have to take another jab at him.
The joke was with the red is those that fail the UA, they'll be seeing red.
And the judges' bathrooms will all just be concrete painted, right?
Yeah, and the latch will say in session instead of occupied. Next item was the no snow melt system at the public entry. I mean, they have that in the law enforcement center, and it turned out that at the end of where was ice melt underneath the concrete, where at the end of that it ended up damming up and icing up, which I'm sure at the beginning I thought it was a good thing, but it didn't turn out to be such a good thing over there. Delivery directional signage to be provided at entry of Braddock and that to make sure delivery people aren't going to the wrong part. Verify storage at level O, court administration programmed 550 and 1,500 square feet are labeled as court admin in 3 different rooms. We left that a little bit on the open side. Instead of assigning a room down that lower level for each other, we got an area, and we want to have the flexibility to assign that as needed to make sure that I'm not locking one into this thing and they actually need this one. I think it makes sense at this point because that's not one of those critical decisions that has to be made right this second. And final selection for most areas, you know, in the court administration jury assembly, spaces aren't finalized yet. It's really nothing major there. None of these things on this list are you know, fatal to the project at all. We did check on the window washing facilities, and we've been told by those people that do that with the long poles that they can get them all from the ground, so we don't have to have the ties off on the roof hanging over, except for that little penthouse balcony, that one little spot that has to be, but it's not the whole building like we were wondering if we had to because of the amount of glass on that southwest side. They can be washed from the ground up to 75 feet, no special equipment needed, which is kind of nice. You know, because anytime we have a tie-off, it has to meet the OSHA standards, as you know. And trying to get the design, layout, landscape, final landscape review will be coming out pretty quick. Interior materials we review, we've done that. Next steps, just a few dates in here between January and February of next year. Between the county attorneys, the approval from the board for the bids was on January 23rd. Issue of documents for bidding on the 30th. Pre-bid meeting on 14th of February. Bids received the 28th of February, and April of 18 mobilization with the anticipated construction completion of January 2020 and punch list on February, March of 2020. This change did raise up the Y from third quarter of 2019 to January 2020, and I was told by Pete Philippi, our Integrity Group, that is our construction manager, says architects like to tell you time frames. Construction managers will tell you the real time frames because we have wood and other materials in there that need proper time to dry and cure, and because we have 9 courtrooms. We don't want to have like Blue Earth County where they got in too quickly, didn't have it done, and all the wood's curled up. We don't want that. I'd rather make sure we got this done. So those are little things that, and all the qualified bids will come before the full board for
final okay. I made sure that was added, make sure that is all in there, so everybody here gets to vote on that instead of just executive committee.
So you said it'll be 2020 before the courthouse?
It'll probably be, more than likely, it'll be somewhere January of 2020, which the bench had concerns about that, but they're going to have to deal with what the reality is.
Well, we'll
because
see what happens as we go forward.
as much as you'd like to get in that third quarter of 2019, if because of what we're doing takes longer than that, hopefully it's just a case of the construction manager wants to give you a worst case scenario just in case nothing goes according to plan. They could figure along on this, but this is a little change from before, so I brought up a question for me on that, because timelines to me are kind of important to get people to know what to do, and plus the bench, third quarter of 2019 versus first quarter of 2020, be concerned, but Judge McPherson, who we had to talk about renaming it to the McPherson Justice Center, said she'd talk with the bench about that and make sure that they understood why, and that the 10th Judicial District, the lead judge, and I don't recall the name of that person right now, is aware of this particular action coming up. So that's, and that is available there, and I will make that available to anybody who wants to see that. Okay, I got one other item here. I missed the 55 Coalition meeting on Friday because I was at the 7W St. Cloud. The 7W St. Cloud was to be drafting more legislative proposals, which we want to make sure that since there's a bonding year, that we have same priorities that the League of Minnesota Cities, the Association of Minnesota Counties, and the Transportation Alliance and all other entities that are going before lobbying. We're kind of paralleling the same path.
Again, I suggest that you read the ones that came from Coordinator Kelly.
Okay.
All of the different ones that all our different departments had.
And this is just transportation. The rest of my work is transportation stuff here, to make sure we're there. The biggest talk was basically the Corridors of Commerce program. The Met Council recently was trying to throw a wrench in the whole thing by trying to strong arm it into being a 60-40 instead of a 50-50 split like it's been since it's been adopted, since it's gone on. And there's been a lot of opposition to that. Tim Nolan from, Dolan, excuse me, not Nolan, Dolan from Sherburne County was the first to come across that, and as this came forward, we've gotten a lot more support from different greater Minnesota policy boards like ours to have the same message there, that we want the funding mechanism to be same as it's been. For them to try changes to the 11th hour is really not fair, not right, not anything. Where was that discussion before? So that got voted, that'll be put in, and we're copying the Charles Zelli, Commissioner of Transportation, the governor, and all the people that are involved in that. The Highway 55 Coalition, I wasn't there, but Virgil gave me a text. I apologize to Commissioner Houston. I thought she did this to me, but I was elected chair of the 55 Coalition, so that's what happens when you don't show up. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, Mr. Chair, I'll be a couple quick things. I was at the Meth Education and Drug Awareness meeting last Wednesday. They've been meeting since 2004 when they formed at the height of the meth epidemic. And of course, drugs continue to be a huge problem, so it's not just meth. But at the height of the meth problem, there were 80 labs in Wright County alone. The county attorney has earmarked $5,000 for the next 2 years, $5,000 in 18, $5,000 in 2019 to help us continue our organization. And we do give out grants to schools for a number of different anti-drug and chemical use awareness. And we granted $500 for a prom speaker for Maple Lake High School next year. And his presenter will share his personal story as well as give students reasons, reminders, and a message to think about their choices and their actions. And there's also the governor has created a state opioid oversight project with representations from a number of state departments. And then I also was at the Public Works Labor Management meeting on Thursday. We have a new, or they'll have, the 49ers have a new business agent, so going forward, Ron is, you know, they've kind of district the business agents, and Ray, and I did not write down his name, so I can't remember his last name, but, so he'll be representing the 49ers. One kind of point of interest, the bridge, the railroad bridge in Howard Lake, there have been 16 crashes with vehicles that were too high in this last year, so that's something that no matter, Virgil was saying that sometimes people follow their directions and they somehow just miss that the bridge is too short for them to go under, so they've lost a lot of topless vehicles because they've lost their tops going under that bridge.
16 is a lot.
Yep.
In all fairness, that Howard Lake Bridge, they can't lower the road anymore because then they'd be below lake level.
Exactly.
They are as low as that road can go right now.
And
like one every 2 weeks.
we had our 20-year celebration with Safe Communities last Friday, and so that's had some great presentations, and it was great. And sympathies to the family and to the city council at South Haven. Their mayor, David Cothey, died suddenly last week, and sympathies for them and going forward with new planning.
Okay, in the interest of time and personal needs, I'll pass.
I'm going to keep it real quick. I'm going to say thank you to all the HHS staff for their wonderful job last Tuesday night at the foster care holiday extravaganza, I'll call it.
It was fun.
Yeah, I wish I could have made it.
Yeah. You said Santa instead in your place.
And then just the Highway 25 Coalition, more details to come in January, but we're starting the process of an open house to release some preliminary plans in February. More to come with that. That's all I have.
Coordinator Kelly, do you have anything?
No, sir.
All right. Nothing else come to board before the board. We are adjourned at 11:21.